So how reliable are you? Are you someone that everyone knows they can call anytime they need something? The person that will do whatever needs to be done, no matter the cost to them? Or do you shirk your responsibilities and pawn it off on someone else? Today, we're going to take a look at this entire family. The first week, we saw that Naomi was trying to take care of Ruth and her other daughter-in-law by trying to get them to go back home to their families and find a husband and have a family of their own. And how Ruth did not do that. She took care of Naomi instead, went with her, and then she went to glean in the fields and provide for them. And then we saw how Boaz was kind to her. And we talked in that episode about how, her kindness was coming back on her. But today we're going to see how just everyone is working together. This person is taking care of this person at this moment. And then later that person takes care of another. And they're all working together in order to do whatever is needed. And as soon as they're called upon, they step up. Everyone does what they should be doing and they don't pawn it off on anyone else. And so let's go ahead and read in Ruth 3, the very first verse says, Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, My daughter, should I not seek rest for you that it may be well with you? Remember in the very first episode in chapter 1, verse 9, Naomi was telling both of her daughters-in-law, I want you to find rest in the home of a husband. And so she's using those exact same words here. And she says, shouldn't I seek rest for you? And so she hasn't forgotten the mission that she has, the way that she is going to take care of Ruth, right? She sent Orpah home, and Orpah's mom is the one and dad that are taking care of her and helping her find a husband. But this is Naomi's responsibility now. And now that they're settled in Israel, she's like, okay, I need to do my part. This is my responsibility, and I'm going to do what I need to do. And Boaz is the obvious choice, right? He's the one that she had previously said was their kinsman redeemer. And so in verse 2, she says, Is not Boaz our relative with whom the young women you were working? See, he's winnowing the barley tonight on the threshing floor. And so Naomi knew that when the men would do this, they would also stay the night there on the threshing floor to keep their grain safe so that no one would steal it. And so she says in verse 3, Wash therefore and anoint yourself with oil and put on your cloak and go down to the threshing floor, but don't make yourself known to the man until he's finished eating and drinking. And so she's telling her, like, hey, get cleaned up, get dressed up, and go down and meet this man. And her getting dressed up may have just been like, hey, put on your best clothes. But it also could have meant take off your mourning clothes, the clothes that she's been wearing that shows she's lost her husband, and put on your, hey, I'm available now clothes, right? Let this man see that you're no longer mourning your dead husband and that you're available to him at this point. That could be the case. Or it could just be that she's just putting on her best clothes. As far as anointing herself with oil, this could have also just been a normal part of women getting ready back in that time. Or it could have been fragrant oil that smelled like perfume. So it's like, put on your dating clothes, put on your perfume, go meet this man, right? Either way, we know that she is showing herself available to him. And so after she tells her to get ready, in verse 4, she says, wait until after he's done eating. She said that in verse 3. And then in verse 4, she says, but when he lays down, observe the place that he lays, and then go and uncover his feet and lie down, and then he'll tell you what to do. Now, this sounds strange to us, right? But what she's doing is Boaz would not have approached her because he's much, much older than her, and he knows that her husband has just died, and it would not be appropriate for him to approach her. And so she has to approach him and say, hey, I'm available and I'm choosing you. And by going and laying down at his feet, she's kind of showing her submission to him. The feet is, the lowliest part. And so she's saying, hey, I'm submitting myself to you, uncovering your feet, saying, I would like you to place your covering over me, be my protector. And so this is all a bit of symbolism on her part. And this is what Naomi is instructing her to do. And she says, after you do all of this, then Boaz will take it from there. And so in verse 5, Ruth says, okay, I'll do everything that you said. And so she went down to the threshing floor just as her mother-in-law had commanded her. Now, I want to stop and tell you a little bit about the threshing floor. Where this was usually a very hard foundation on the eastern side of the city, and they would thrash the grain, and then he presumably would sit down to eat, and then let the west wind blow all the chaff away, and then he would go and sleep there to protect it. And so it says she does all this. And then in verse 7, it says, when Boaz had eaten and drunk and his heart was merry, he went down to lie at the end of the heap of grain. And then she came softly and she uncovered his feet and she lay down. At midnight, he was startled and turned over, and behold, there was a woman laying at his feet. And he said to her, who are you? And he's kind of asking, like, not only who are you, but what in the world are you doing here, right? And so she responds, I am Ruth, your servant. Spread your wings over your servant, for you are a redeemer. And do you remember whenever he first met her and he said, may the Lord reward you because you were so kind to Naomi and you've come here to seek refuge under his wings? She's using that same language towards him to say, basically, I believe that God is giving me refuge under his wings through you. You are the one that is going to cover me, protect me with your wings. I believe that you are that person. And so she's placing her confidence in him, right? And it's such a sweet thing what he says to her. He says, may you be blessed by the Lord, my daughter. You have made this last kindness greater than the first, in that you have not gone after young men, whether poor or rich. And so he's saying, I already knew that you were kind by what you were doing for your mother-in-law, but what a kindness you're showing to me now, that you would choose me to be your husband because you want me to redeem your family land, and you trust me, and you're not seeking after these younger men. The fact that you see that I'm able to take care of you and that you want me is such a kindness to me. But then he says, but there's a problem. He says, now my daughter, do not fear. I will do for you what you have asked. For all my fellow townsmen know that you are a worthy woman. So he's like, you're definitely an excellent choice for me, and I would love to marry you. But the truth is, I am a redeemer, yet there is a redeemer that's nearer than I. So he's saying there's a closer relative than I am, and he has the option to redeem you. Actually, if you're choosing to go this route of staying within the family so that you can get your land back, and not marrying someone outside of the family and forfeiting that land, if you're choosing to go the route of getting a kinsman redeemer, then there's actually someone that's closer to me. And so I have to ask his permission first before I can marry you. But if he turns it down, then I will definitely do this. And so then he says, I need you to lay here till morning, and then I'll address this situation in the morning. And so she laid down at his feet until morning, and then she arose before anyone could recognize her. For he said, let it not be known that this woman has come to the threshing floor. And so he doesn't know if he's going to be the one that is with her permanently. But what he does know is he's going to protect her tonight, not let her go away, at midnight and risk her getting hurt along the way. And that he also is protecting her reputation. He doesn't want anyone to get the wrong idea because she's done nothing wrong here. And then he also doesn't want to send her away empty-handed. And so it says that in verse 15, it says, he tells her before she leaves, bring your garment that you are wearing and hold it out. And so she held it out, and he measured out 6 measures of barley, and he put it on her. And then she went away into the city. Now, some of the versions say 6 ephahs of barley, but it does not say that in the original version. It says measures. And so they are just speculating that that is the measure of barley, because that's the measure of barley that she used whenever she thrashed her own grain and took it home. But she had gotten only an ephah of barley the first time that we heard this measurement. And that was 30 to 40 pounds worth of barley, just 1 ephah. So if he gave her 6 ephahs of barley, then, that could have been 200 pounds worth. And she probably was not going to be carrying that home. And so most likely what they meant was she holds out her cloak, the covering that she has, and he just takes, probably handfuls, 6 measures, just 6 scoops full or 6 handfuls, and puts it in her cloak, and then she carries that home. That's probably what they were talking about there. And then whenever she gets back to her mother-in-law asks her, "How did you fare, my daughter?" And then Ruth told her all that Boaz had done for her. And she said, he even gave me these 6 measures of barley, saying, "I don't want you to go back empty-handed." And so, he always seems very conscious of the fact that Ruth is lacking and he's able to fill her need, right? And so this is just showing further that he does this in every situation. Every time that he sees she needs something, he fills that need. And so she tells that to her mother-in-law, and then her mother-in-law says, "Okay, well, all we can do is wait now. Let's wait and see what happens." And, most likely they're really hoping for Boaz, because she knows Boaz. She knows that Boaz is going to take care of her. And so most likely they're really hoping that this other guy turns her down. But I guess either way, she gets a husband and her land back if this man decides that he wants to do this. And so they're just waiting to see what God has in store for them. The fact that God led them to Boaz's field and not this other man's field kind of indicates that God is going to, allow Boaz to be the one that marries her and redeems her land. But we're going to see what happens next week.